Hi, I'm Ted Field. I've decided to start making some travel videos that kind of show you the way that I like to travel. I'm older now and I like to travel a different way than I did when I was younger. So I've started doing these videos, the first set of which are on Granada, Spain, so please look for those. But while I was making those videos, I thought it might be fun to give you an idea of some of the food that I had while I was there. I'm not a cook, so I can't do anything fancy, but I can do Salmorejo. It's sort of a version of gazpacho that is blended and does not have peppers and cucumbers, etc. in it. It really is based around the tomato. In fact, it'll live or die with a tomato. Let me tell you what the ingredients are. I have 2.5 pounds of tomatoes. I have between 3 and 4 cups of bread from a baguette. I have bacon, and I just made enough so that I could demonstrate, but usually I would probably do, half a pound to a whole pound if I was doing an entire, serving 4 or 5 people. I have a cup of olive oil. I have 2 minced cloves of garlic. I have a tablespoon of sherry vinegar and 3 boiled eggs. Now, you're gonna notice that I did not use fresh tomatoes. This is gonna be my experiment with you guys because I've never done this before. The last time I did this with fresh tomatoes, they weren't the best. They weren't quite as ripe as I would like them to be, and it really affected the outcome of the Salmorejo. So I'm trying an experiment. I read online that you could use good quality canned tomatoes. I used Cinto, and they're Roma tomatoes. They're in juice, and I'm gonna see how this goes. I've got a little tomato paste somewhere that I can add to it at the end if I'm not happy with it. That's the beauty of this recipe. You can kind of get it to the style that you want it. Also, when I was frying up the bacon, I got a tip for you guys. Because you're going to be using just bacon bits anyway, why don't you take the pound of bacon, and it's so much easier than dealing with those big strips. And I just take the meat scissors and I just cut up the entire pound into about half-inch size chunks and just put them in the frying pan. They separate as they cook, and it's so much easier and so much cleaner than trying to do with the big strips of bacon. Also, the last time I did these boiled eggs, and I've got 3 boiled eggs for the recipe, they looked like they were in a war. The eggshells stuck like crazy, so I read a whole bunch of different ways online of how to do it without getting these crazy beat up eggs. So the method that I chose was to have the water boiling already at a high boil. I took the eggs right out of the refrigerator and dropped them gently into the water. The water cooled a bit because the eggs were cooled. I brought it back to a boil, and then I turned it to a simmer for 13 minutes. Then I took the eggs and I put them in a bowl of ice cold water and let them sit there for a few seconds. And I mean, the results were pretty good, the best I've had in a long time. So give that a shot next time that you're having to use boiled eggs. I think you're going to be happy. So again, like I said, this recipe is very forgiving. So let's start. And I'm not going to use the juice of the tomatoes right now. Oh, by the way, I have my food processor with the blade attachment in it. I think I'm just going to scoop out the tomatoes and use them this way. I don't know exactly how this is going to turn out. So I'm going to, man, this is a big fat mess, isn't it? So I'm going to try this method first. And then, if I'm not happy, I'm going to add back in some of the juice. So again, like I said, this is 2.5 pound Roma tomatoes, Italian style. Oh, by the way, if you want to use fresh tomatoes, you're going to have to peel and core them. And peeling a fresh tomato is very easy. Again, have boiling water. Take your fresh tomato and cut an X on the bottom. Just score an X on the bottom of the tomato. Put the tomatoes in the boiling water for about 30 seconds to a minute. And then, excuse me. So put the tomatoes in boiling water for about 30 seconds to a minute. Again, have some ice water sitting close by. Once the tomatoes have boiled for about 30 seconds to a minute, scoop them gently out, put them in the water for about 10 or 15 seconds. When you lift them out, you'll see the peel is already beginning to fall off. They're so easy to peel that way. So you take them, again, allow them to cool, and then you'll want to just peel the skin off. You'll cut them and core them if you're using fresh tomatoes. Now, the first thing you do is you want to process the tomatoes until they're nice and smooth. You might want to plug in your processor. Now this is where you can begin to make some decisions about how you want your salmorejo to be. Start adding the bread until you get it to the thickness you want. Salmorejo is a reasonably thick it's kind of soup. I mean, obviously you can eat it. You eat it with a spoon, but it's not a watery soup at all. This is fairly thick already. Now I am going to be adding some olive oil, which will help thin it up. So I'm going to add just some of the breadcrumbs, or some of the bread right now. I'm not going to add all of it. By the way, I did stick this bread in the oven. I first you slice the crust off the bread. Then I slice it up and put it in the oven at very low temperature just to kind of crisp it up a little bit. I did save the bread, the crust of the bread, because I think I'm going to toast these later and maybe make something you can dip in the salmorejo. So I've got the bread in here, and I'm going to process this now. So the recipe that I saw called for 1 clove of garlic minced. I like garlic. I have 2, but I'm going to actually start with just 1, taste it and see what I like. Right now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add a little bit of salt. You don't need a lot. Now some people add sugar. I'm not a fan of that, but do whatever makes you happy. So again, this is 2 cloves of minced garlic, and I'm just adding 1. I'm going to add my sherry vinegar. I'm going to process it again. So now I'm going to add the olive oil, but I'm going to add it slowly while the soup is processing. I want it to emulsify. So in other words, I don't want it to separate out. So I want to make sure it's mixed in very, very well. So I've added most of the olive oil. Ooh, it's getting to be a nice consistency. As you can see, it's much richer than, say, gazpacho, much creamier. I'm going to give it a taste right now and see what I think. That's good. That's really good. Yeah, actually, I think I may prefer using the canned tomatoes. Now here's sort of the secret ingredient. So I looked at a bunch of recipes online, and one of them had what they call traditional salmorejo, and this was one that their grandmother used to make. And right at the end, right before she was getting ready to serve it, she would take 1 boiled egg, add it, and process that into her salmorejo, and that really made it rich and creamy. And I know that they serve salmorejo with a little bit of egg on top, but I didn't know that maybe they would put egg into it. That's delicious, but Well, I know, I don't think I'm gonna add the rest of the garlic. I think I like it as is. It's actually a little spicy. It's creamy. When I would want to serve this, in fact, I'll show you. Come back after I've kind of cleaned this up a little bit and I'll show you how to serve Salmorejo. So I'm back with the finished product. Salmorejo, like gazpacho, is served cold. So you can put it in a container and refrigerate it, keep it for a couple of days. It'll stay nice and fresh. In fact, it actually, I think, gets a little bit better after a day. Typically, they serve it with some chopped egg and a little, now I'm using bacon. You can use pancetta. You can use some serrano ham on the top and enjoy. It's a delicious soup that is incredibly healthy and very fresh, good for summer. But even if you can't find fresh tomatoes, you can use canned tomatoes and have this during the winter. So I strongly recommend this dish of Andalucia. I think you're gonna really enjoy it. And look for my other videos about traveling to Granada, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks.